Good afternoon. Welcome to part 3 of my discussion of Ginkgotree as part of our pilot at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Obviously, there's 2 more parts out there that you can feel free to listen to and then head over here. What we're going to talk about in this presentation in particular has to deal with some of the results from our student surveys. So if that's all you're interested in, let's go ahead and get started. I am Tanya Joosten, the Director of E-Learning Research and Development at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. You can feel free to connect with me on Twitter at @tjoosten. So when you implement or pilot a technology or a new innovation, you want to know, what do students think about it? To determine whether you're going to move forward and disseminate the technology or roll it out a pilot or whatever you want to call it. So what we always do with our innovation projects is we administer a student survey that measures an array of variables. Some of these variables are based off of the characteristics of whatever the media or the technology are. The second thing is that we have some sort of standard variables that we look at, usually engagement or interactivity. Interactivity, when we talk about that, usually has a subset of engagement in there. I know that engagement is the broader term used sometimes, but a lot of times, the construct means the same thing. We also always look at students' perceptions of learning and their perceptions of satisfaction. And so we had administered this survey to the folks that were participating in the pilot, and we had 151 students, 151, respond to the survey that we had asked the faculty to administer. So let's talk a little bit about those results here, because I truly think we should make decisions based off of the data. I think they call it data-driven decisions or evidence-based decisions or whatever you're calling it. At the end of the day, we want to have evidence that students are learning or perceiving they're learning, that they're satisfied with the technology and so forth, before we invest any additional resources or roll it out to the larger community at the university. Now, as you can see here, the one thing that we found from the student surveys, in particular from the open-ended questions, was that students felt that Ginkgotree was easy. What you see in front of you is a Wordle image, wordle.net, which is sort of a frequency analysis for different words in qualitative data. So we threw in all of the open-ended questions just for fun, the responses to them, and wanted to see what were the words that were most used in the student responses. And obviously you can see here, easy was a very common one. One thing that I liked about Ginkgotree, a student says, was that it was easy to read documents and it saved me the cost of having to buy all of the books. I also liked that the professor was able to make comments, which was very helpful since I was enrolled in an online course. Just one example that the students felt that it was easy to read. Let's talk a little bit more about easy, looking at some of the descriptive quantitative data that we have. So in looking at the quantitative data, the students were asked a series of Likert type questions from strongly disagree to strongly agree. We've categorized them here in 3 different categories in order to keep it easy. So the agree is actually agree and strongly agree. The disagree is disagree and strongly disagree. We pulled out 3 of the responses measuring ease of use. One was Ginkgotree easy to use? The second was registering easy to do, and the third one was features and navigation easy. And as you'll see here, overwhelmingly, the students felt that it obviously was easy to use, supporting what we saw in the Wordle and the qualitative data. So almost 87% of the students agree or strongly agree that Ginkgotree was easy to use. 81% of the students felt that registering for Ginkgotree was easy to do. And then finally, 78% of the students agree or strongly agreed that the features and navigation of Ginkgotree were easy to use. Let's talk a little bit more about that qualitative data. Now, it was very interesting in going through and looking at the qualitative data and pulling out some of the themes from that for the student responses. One of the questions that we asked them was, what was one thing you really liked? And obviously you can see why easy was so popular. Folks thought it was easy to use, easy to access, easy to stay organized, easy to view, easy to follow, easy to navigate, and easy to read. Overwhelmingly, we saw the comment, easy to use, over and over again. So that lets us know that functionality with this technology was not a barrier to students' use, which is really fantastic. I'd like to talk a little bit more about some of the themes that I pulled out of the responses in regards to easy to use, which is very interesting because they match up with some of the faculty responses about why you'd want to use Ginkgotree in an earlier presentation that I shared with you all. So I'm sure some of you remember in the earlier presentation in talking with faculty, they had said one of the reasons that you'd want to use it is because of this increased access, this one-stop shopping. Very interesting because our qualitative data, we found the same themes. Students found that Ginkgotree made it easy to access content all in one place. And I'm going to talk about some specific comments here that students had in regards to this theme of access that we found. So for example, one student says, having all content in one easy to access area is what they liked. Where another student says, I liked how all of the content for our class was on one page and easy to view. Another says, having all the articles, books, readings in one website, easy to find, easy to read. Another one says, easy access, didn't have to buy a book. That everything was easy to access. Very easy to access materials, easy to access, easy to access, easy to access. Well, I guess you get the idea. Students really appreciated having everything together in one place and easy to find. Now, I think we'll talk a little bit here in our next theme about how it might differentiate from just having your information in your LMS's content area. The second theme that I pulled out of the student open-ended questions or the qualitative data from the student survey was this theme of enhanced organization and layout. And so if you again remember, the faculty had talked about reason to use Ginkgotree was going to be because of this packaging of content. And so, you know, for example, in some of this organization and layout overlaps with easy access. There were a couple comments, for example, it's easy to use, provide great layouts of information, and it costs less than a book. Another comment, again, overlaps the two, access and organization, and saying, it was very organized and easy to access the documents I needed. Now, obviously, when we talk about access, access can mean a lot of things. Just being able to get to the content without paying an exorbitant amount of price. But I think also the way something's organized can help us access things. You know, it reduces sort of our barriers to get to the content. So we see a little bit of overlap here. There's some other things too that more specifically allude to the organization and layout and the packaging of the content. So for example, one student talks about their ability to stay organized because of the class. The student mentions, since the class was a blended course, Ginkgotree made it easy to stay organized and up to speed on assignments. Now, another student alludes to specifically the organization of the content on Ginkgotree. The student states, I liked the way that Ginkgotree organized things and the way that all the materials for each week were available as a different box. I think Ginkgotree, actually calls them tiles. Anyways, each week were available as a different box, made it easy to keep track of what needs to be done. Again, alluding, I guess, to their ability to stay organized based on the organization of Ginkgotree. Sorry, picking up here with the student. I've used different platforms, Angel, D2L, and Blackboard for online courses, and in all three cases it was pretty difficult and confusing to keep track of lectures and assignments. So I thought that the way Ginkgotree was set up and organized was quite a step up from the others. I hope that the future online courses will use Ginkgotree, as I really like the way it helped keep the class organized. Another student, when being asked, what do you like about it? The basic organization of it, the student says. They go on to say all of the materials were in one place and it was easy to navigate, and the materials could be of different types: articles, book chapters, videos. It is much more difficult to navigate this through the university's site. A final student said, overall, I liked being able to post and discuss assignments. Also, being able to view articles in a visually pleasing way was appreciated. So as we can see here, two important themes: access and organization and layout. They overlap a little. Let's talk about the final theme here. The final theme has to do with navigation. And again, I think that this relates back to some of what the faculty were talking about with the enhanced packaging of content and this idea of being able to guide students' learning, not only from the navigation, but with the idea that everything's in this one-stop place. So that was a common theme that came out when asking students what they liked. Again, with this idea of easy to use. So they liked flipping between the articles. As one student says, flipping through the articles was easy with the accessible forward and back buttons and page numbering. And you can see in the image in front of you that I've identified those. So it's easy to scroll down a page, move to the next page in an article, or move to the next content piece, all right from your navigation frame, or even move back using breadcrumbs back to the initial module itself. Again, another student just says flipping between the articles was very easy with Ginkgotree. A third student says just the functionality of it. Ginkgotree was very easy to navigate. And then a final student said viewing the instructor's comments and the comments of other classmates because it was like a chat room and was easy to just scroll through to read the ideas. So not only was it easy to navigate the content, it was easy to navigate some of the interactivity functionality of Ginkgotree as well that was available through the non-hierarchical or non-threaded asynchronous discussion forum, which because it is such like a Facebook functionality to comment, folks felt that it was like a chat room. All right, so let's talk about some of the other variables beyond ease of use and some of the reasons students were satisfied. Let's now talk about students' perceptions of interactivity, or what sometimes people refer to as engagement. So we had asked our students a series of Likert questions about their perceptions of interactivity and engagement. And again, you know, when we look at an e-text and you're just taking, you know, a face-to-face or, you know, a physical textbook that you are making digital, you don't think necessarily that that's going to make students more engaged or increase the interactivity per se. So, I mean, when you think of your standard textbook, I don't know necessarily how engaging a standard textbook is. I guess it would depend on some of the images that are there, maybe the style of language that are used. But I think most of us know, you know, textbooks are not necessarily something that engages students. I think a lot of students might even say that they don't feel that a textbook is even necessary for their learning, sadly. Now, what was different, though, is when we looked at the media characteristics and the functionality of Ginkgotree, it had some interactivity features. So it allowed for annotation and comments. It allowed for more rich, current content, digital content that might be more engaging to students, like videos. It also had this discussion or chat area, as some of the students referred to it. So in looking at some of the descriptive quantitative data that we gathered here, you can see it was really interesting that we did have some, you know, decent degree of responses strongly agree around some of the interactivity measures. So 51% of the students agreed or strongly agreed that Ginkgotree made them feel like part of the class, which these are really great to see. Also, we had 52% of the students that actually felt that it increased their participation in class, which is really wonderful. We find a lot of times that faculty are looking to increase students' participation. And this again is great to see. We had 61% of our students who felt that Ginkgotree increased the interaction with the content. Now, if you remember back to course load, we actually had students who said they read less because of the use of course load. So it's great to see that 61% of the students agreed or strongly agreed that they actually increased their interaction with the content. Some of the comments we pulled from our open-ended questions, again, what did you like about Ginkgotree, or what was most useful? One of the students had said, I liked the comment section and being able to interact with classmates that way. Another said it was something different and it made the class a little exciting. Another student had said, I liked browsing the website links for videos and articles. I liked that the professor was able to make comments, which was very helpful. So I think definitely some of these features or characteristics of Ginkgotree that facilitate communication amongst students and from the instructor to the students really has led to this idea here that students feel more of a part of the class, that it's increasing their participation, but also that ability to deliver videos and images and different sorts of rich media and also current media like websites also increases interactivity and engagement. Now, one of the big questions is, we know students really like it. They love the ability to access everything in one place. They love the organization and layout and the navigation. They obviously felt that it increased the interactivity and engagement, but did they feel that it impacted their learning? So looking here at the descriptive analysis from the quantitative data that we had gathered from the survey, we pulled a couple items to illustrate the variable of learning. So what we see here, and this is really exciting to see, 69% of the students actually felt that they understood the course material better. 69% actually felt that Ginkgotree was beneficial to their learning, agree and strongly agree again, and 59% felt that it helped them connect ideas together. It's really wonderful to see such high perceptions of student learning from students themselves in regards to any innovation or technology. So again, the one thing, and this is going back to our Wordle from the beginning, is that we know that students liked it. The students seemed to like that it was easy to use, their materials were organized, they could see what their instructor thought through the use of annotations, and that they had a bunch of different materials that were engaging to them to help them understand the content and to learn, such as, articles, readings, notes, videos, and so forth. We did ask our students specifically what they thought of Ginkgotree in comparison to a traditional textbook. And on the screen in front of you, you'll see some of those results. So again, the first series of bars representing agree and strongly agree, the second neutral, and the third disagree. So 74% of the students agreed or strongly agreed that Ginkgotree was more portable. This is obviously from the ability to use Ginkgotree on any device, whether it be a smartphone or a tablet or a laptop, so folks can more easily take it with them. We also see that students felt that by 61% that the content was more relevant. And that, I think that comes from using OER, obviously. So by using web pages, videos, and those sorts of things, you're providing students with more current content. 58% felt that it was better than a traditional textbook. 55% agreed or strongly agreed that they preferred it over a traditional textbook. 48% actually agree or strongly agreed that they learned more using Ginkgotree than they would have in using a traditional textbook. And then 51%, which is very exciting, actually said they read more. So unlike course load, when you just take a traditional textbook and digitize it and put it in an application, we actually found that students were reading more content, and that's really fantastic to see. So now we've shared with you some of our qualitative analysis. We've also shared some specific comments to back up some of our descriptive statistics that we've shared with you. I'd also like to just quickly tell you about some of our more interesting multivariate analysis we did with our data. So as you can see in the screen in front of you, we actually found that interactivity or engagement was positively associated with both learning and satisfaction. And in addition, it was great to find that satisfaction and learning were also positively related. In addition to this, we also did a stepwise regression analysis in order to test whether both interactivity and satisfaction actually contributed significantly in predicting student learning, or at least their perception of learning. And so interactivity was entered into the model and actually was significantly associated with learning. Approximately 70% of the variance in learning could be accounted for by interactivity. So the good news is if we are doing active learning and creating interactive experiences, then hopefully that will impact student learning, or at least it impacts their perception of it. We actually performed another stepwise regression analysis to test whether both interactivity and learning contributed significantly to student satisfaction with Ginkgotree. So we entered in step 1 interactivity into the model, and it was significantly associated with satisfaction. Approximately 40% of the variance in satisfaction with Ginkgotree was accounted for by interactivity. Great, interesting stuff. So when we were doing some of our analysis here, we were doing factor analysis and our descriptive analysis and our multivariate analysis and all that good stuff to share with you. We did have a couple surprises, and I wanted to share those with you. So in the factor analysis that we did, a factor came out that we weren't sure if it was called organization or flexibility. As you saw in our qualitative analysis, definitely when students were talking about ease of use or why they liked it or satisfaction, this idea of what we're now calling flexibility sort of came out. So students felt that they had greater flexibility to learn because of Ginkgotree, that it helped them better organize and structure their learning. And again, we heard some of those comments earlier in this presentation. And also it made their study time more efficient. As you can see in front of you, 66% felt greater flexibility to learn, 63% felt it better organized and structured their learning, and 59% felt they had more efficient study time because of the use of Ginkgotree. When flexibility and interactivity entered into the model, they were significantly associated with learning. So that's really great. So not only does interactivity impact learning, the idea of flexibility and interactivity together in a learning experience are going to impact learning. Actually, approximately 79% of the variance in students' perceptions of their learning could be accounted for by interactivity and flexibility. Again, really great finding, and it helps us better understand what we are supposed to be doing in the classroom. So the findings I just mentioned regarding flexibility and the model that we ran were from the fall. In the spring 2014, we also ran stepwise regression analysis to test whether interactivity, satisfaction, and flexibility contributed significantly in predicting students' perceptions of learning. We actually did control for course size and mode, and so those were entered first. And after controlling for course size and mode, flexibility and interactivity entered into the model and were significantly associated with learning. Approximately 82% of the variance in learning could be accounted for by flexibility and interactivity. So I'm going to share one final analysis with you, which I know that most of you are probably interested in this more than anything else, and that was looking at the impact of OER versus copyrighted materials. So we actually found that there were some differences that were coming out in our data between the different classes, and so we wanted to explore that a little bit more. And although our study was not specific in looking at the impact of OER, we definitely were hoping the piloting of the use of Ginkgotree would help encourage folks to use more OER now that they had this tool that sort of helped them curate and aggregate content for students. So one of the things that we realized in looking at the data was that OER versus non-OER, or copyrighted materials, so to speak, basic sort of textbooks that were used, might be an indicator of differences between classes. So we actually categorized the different classes on whether they were considered a quote OER class or a non-OER content course. And that usually meant that the substantive amount of the content for the course must be OER. So we did independent sample t-tests using OER as the grouping variable, illustrating OER classes actually reported significantly higher learning. So the students who were in the OER classes actually reported higher levels of learning as those compared to the courses that did not use a significant amount of OER content. Also, or additionally here, the OER courses reported significantly higher satisfaction in Ginkgotree as compared to the non-OER content courses. And then finally, the OER courses exhibited significantly higher reports of flexibility as compared to their non-OER counterparts. So here we see in our data, and this in of itself will probably be a study that we publish in the very near future, hopefully. But what we're seeing is students in courses that use predominantly OER, we are seeing that they had higher, statistically significant, higher perceptions of learning, of satisfaction, and as well as flexibility. And so when we're looking for data to support the use of OER, it's obvious from a student standpoint that when we use OER, they feel like they're learning more, they're more satisfied with their experience, and that they feel that they have more flexibility in how they learn and how they study. So just a little food for thought there. So thanks for listening. You can connect with me on Twitter at TJOOSTEN, at Tjoosten. Thanks.